Hello, Mark. I'm going to read I've Been to the Mountaintop by Martin Luther King. Thank you very kindly, my friends, as I listened to Ralph Abernathy and his eloquent and generous introduction and then thought about myself. I wondered who he was talking about. It's always good to have your closet friend and associate to say something good about you. And Ralph Abernathy is the best friend that I have in the world. I'm delighted to see each of you here tonight in spite of a storm warning. You reveal that you are determined to go on anyhow. Something is happening in Memphis. Something is happening in our world. And you know, if I were standing at the beginning of time, with the possibility of talk, taking a kind of general and panom- panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live? I would take my mental flight by Egypt and I would watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness on toward the promised land. And in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move by Greece and talk and take my mind to Mount Olympus, and I would see Plato, Aristotle, 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 Socrates, Euripides, Euripides, and Aristophanes assembled around the Parthenon, and I would walk them around the Parthenon as they discussed the great and eternal issues of reality. But I wouldn't stop here. I wouldn't stop there. I would go on even to the great heyday of the Rome Empire, and I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the day of Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for cultural and athletic life of man. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even go by the way that the man for whom I landed had his habitat, and I would watch Martin Luther and his tactic, his 95 theses on the door and the church of Wittenberg. But I wouldn't stop there. I would come up even to 1863 and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the early 30s and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation, and come with the eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now that's a strange statement to make, because the world is all messed up, nation is sick, trouble is in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement, but I know somehow that only when it's dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of 20th century in a way that men, in some strange way, are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and whenever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlantic, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee. The cry is always the same: we want to be free. And another reason that I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point where we are going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with through history. But the demands didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men for years now have been talking about war and peace. But now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer a choice between violence and non-violence in this world. It's non-violence or non-existence. That is where we are today. And also in the human rights revolution, if something isn't done, and done in a hurry, to bring the colored peoples of the world out of their long years of poverty, their long years of hurt and neglect, the whole world is doomed. Now I'm just happy that God has allowed me to live in this period to see what is unfolding. And I'm happy that He's allowed me to be in Memphis. And also in the human rights, sorry, I can remember, I can remember when Negroes were just going around as Ralph has said so often, scratching where they didn't itch, and laughing when they were not tickled. But that day is all over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. And that's all this whole thing is about. We're not engaged in any negative protests and in any negative arguments with anybody. We're saying that we're determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We're saying that we're God's children, and then we are God's children. We don't have to live we don't have to live like we're forced to live. Now, what does all of this mean in the great period of history? It means that we've got to stay together. We've got to stay together to maintain unity. Whenever Pharaoh wanted to prolong the period of slavery in Egypt, he had favorite formula for doing it. What was that? He kept the slaves fighting among themselves, but whenever the slaves got together, something happens in Pharaoh's court, and he cannot hold the slaves in slavery. When the slaves get together, that's the beginning of getting out of slavery. Now let us maintain unity. Secondly, let us keep the issues where they are. Issue is injustice. The issue is the refusal of Memphis to be fair and honest in its dealings with its public servants, who happen to be sanitation workers now. We've got to keep attention on that. That's always the problem with a little violence. You know what happened other day, and the press dealt only with the window breaking. I read the articles. They very seldom got around to mentioning the fact that 1,300 sanitation workers are on strike, and that Memphis is not being fair to them, and that Mayor Law is in dire need of a doctor. They didn't get around to that. Now we are going to march again, and we go to march again, in order to put the issue where it is supposed to be and force everybody to see that there are 13,100 of God's children are here suffering Some, sometimes going hungry, going through dark and drear- dreary, drear- dreary nights, wondering how this thing is going to come out. That's the issue, and we've got to say to the nation, we know how it's coming out. But when people get caught up with the up with that which is right and they are willing to sacrifice for it, there is no stopping point short of victory. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.